Hello and welcome to this, which is a review of Carcassonne, which I've had for a while and is probably one of my favourite and most simple games. Now, I've just done a couple of videos. I've done my Takedo reviews of the base game and the Crossroads expansion. I've also done Machi Koro, and all of these games are fairly kind of simplistic. They aren't really in-depth games. I have got a few other games that are slightly more complicated. But this one is very, very simple. Basically, you start off with a pile of cards, or pile of tiles, and you reveal your tile and you put it down. You start off with a very, very small board. This is the scoring tile, which is basically just a counter from 1 to 49, and then you can keep going round and round. It just looks a bit more interesting if it's just this. And you've got your little pile of meeples. Now you all start off with your colour, so if you were green you'd have all your green meeples, which are just small little characters. And the game is very, very simple. You start off with a pile of tiles, and if I don't throw them everywhere, and as you play you get a bigger and bigger board. Now I can start off, for example, by doing this. Now there is also, in this base game, it does come with the river expansion, which is a way of starting the game off with a bit of a bigger board. So you start off with the river with these darker coloured tiles, and these ones all have river sections. And you start with a specific tile and you end on the last river tile. And that basically starts off with a bigger chunk. But to explain the game, I can just show you this. Now, all you have to do is you draw a tile. So say I drew this. I might want to claim part of this map. So say I was green, I can claim this castle. Now, in claiming that, nothing actually happened yet. You don't score things until they're complete. Now, different things happen in different ways, but say I was playing and I had to draw the next tile. So the pack of tiles here, I can flip over a card. Now this one might be the next person's card, and they might want to, for example, put it down here, and that means they can choose what to claim. Now there is a rule I'll go into at the end of this review, but I'll basically start simply and end more complicated. If I put this down here and the blue player wanted to claim something, they could either claim this castle, because this is not currently owned by anyone, although it's very, very close, it's not actually touching. That will be touching, that will be touching, and that will be touching. But if they put it down here because they don't want to help my castle complete, they can either claim that castle or they can claim this road. Now in claiming the road, they basically are owning that section of road. Now if I revealed the next tile, if I had this piece, for example, so as the green character again, I could choose where to put this. Now I could either put this down here and I could claim this castle, and then that castle, which is now completely sealed off, scores its points. I would get instantly this piece back. You've only got 7 of these, and I'd get that piece back straight away, and I'd score 2 points per tile of castle. So this would have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'd score 4 points. However, I could also put it here. But for the sake of making this a bit simpler, I'll put it here just to show you that you can score quite a few points. Now I put that on, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and on this board I would go 1, 2, 3, 4. And you have 8 of these meeples, but one of them is on the scoring thing at all times. And the next player would then draw a tile, and it's very, very simple. All you do is draw a tile, and you then choose where to put it. So they might have this piece. Now this one's interesting because it has this little shield icon, and that basically means this tile scores an extra 2 points for being in your castle. So if I was the green, this would be the blue. The blue, there is an open piece of castle here that hasn't been claimed, so they could attach that there, and they could put that on here, and this would score them no points yet, but at the end of the game this section of castle would score them a certain amount of points. Now you just keep going and you keep going, and people would draw tiles and they'd all be put on. Now it's done one tile at a time. You don't all draw a tile, and you definitely don't draw a tile in advance. You just draw your tile if it's your turn, and then choose where to put it. So you could put one down here, and eventually one up here, and then eventually one over here, and one over here. And if I keep going, you might end up finishing quite a big castle. Now say this had been built by one player, and ignore the fact that only one player has been drawing tiles. You obviously alternate. This would end up being scored. Now it's complete. It's complete when all of its open edges, so these open edges that haven't been sealed off by a wall, are sealed off. Now there are corners, so there's a corner and there's a corner and a corner and a corner. Those are sealed, as long as it's not a face of the castle. If it's a corner, it's fine, but if it's a face of the castle that is completely open, then that obviously wouldn't count. Move that down a bit. This castle would score points based on how many tiles there are. So, a city scores during the game 2 points per tile and 2 points per banner icon. So if you first add up the number of tiles, I'll move this out of the way, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in that castle. And that would mean you get 14 points. However, you also get an additional point, 2 points per banner. So you get another 2, another 2, and another 2. So that's 14 plus 6. So one person, instead of scoring 4, has scored 20 by doing this. So this character, if it was up here, I'll get one to represent it. This character would now go whee all the way around and end up on 20. And it's kind of quite nice when you build a big castle. The only problem is that people can kind of dip you over by blocking you. So say you'd built this, and this was your big castle, you could do this. So if, say, the green character drew this, they could put it down here. Now that really limits you, because you can only put a tile down if every single edge that's touching something matches. Now, just to prove a point, I'll just draw a random pile of cards. And there was also this one, which I'll ignore for a moment. I'll draw a random pile of cards. If you want to finish this castle, you have to have a castle piece and a road, and nothing here. It has to be green. So this piece can't work. This piece can't work. That's not grass. That would need to be a castle to touch the rest of this, and that would need to be a road. This one is only a road. This one wouldn't work. This one wouldn't work. This one wouldn't work. Wouldn't work. Wouldn't work. Wouldn't work. Wouldn't work. Wouldn't work. This one, oh no, wait, it can't because there's no road. This one, no. This one, no. 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 Almost. We need this road going the other way. No. No. Haha. That many pieces. We had to search through this much of the board. No. We had to search through this much of the board, this many tiles, to find one that we needed. And obviously there is a chance the other player could have drawn this, and if they knew you needed this piece, they could just go, oh sorry, I didn't realise you needed that piece, haha, and then you're stuck without having that piece. And the other thing is that in the rulebook, there is a thing on the back of the rulebook that says how many pieces there are. So we needed this piece, which is here. And there are 3 of these. And if you knew that 3 of these had been taken, and we can already see one of them had been taken here, we know there's one other piece of this in all of the rest of the pack. And obviously you can then kind of cause problems by stealing the piece someone needs. You can't choose it, because you only draw one piece. But you can basically cause problems by preventing someone from building the piece they need, or from getting the piece they need by kind of wasting it and putting it somewhere they can't get. So it's interesting. It's very, very simple, but it kind of, the scoring and the kind of competitiveness is really, really good. It's really good fun. Now, I also mentioned these roads, so I'll just move you over and show you these roads. And if I don't drop the camera first. And these roads score 1 point per tile. And at the end of the game, they also score 1 point per tile. But if you finish the road, so say I'll just put some random tiles down for the sake of it. If you finish that, by it reaching somewhere. I can find an appropriate tile. Here you go. By finding a point that's like this. Now I'll show you this one. It has this kind of crossroads, but at the end of it you can see it's got like nothing there. You can't actually, it doesn't count as a continuous road, it counts as an end of a road. So when your road stops here, or stops by entering a castle or another type of crossroad like this, this counts as the end of that section. So if you drew that piece, that would end this road, and you'd score 1 point per tile. So you'd score 1 for this tile, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's 5 points. And you'd then move up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you'd have your 5 points. So that's great, but it doesn't score quite as many points. Now you've got to remember you have a limited number of meeples. You only have 7. Now it's worth remembering that, because if you kind of forget how many meeples you've got, you obviously have them all in front of you, so you might know you've only got a few left because you've only got a few in front of you. It's kind of worth remembering that you've not got a huge resource of them, because you might want to save them because you can earn more points from castles, because they're 2 points per tile, than roads, which are only 1. But roads are usually kind of quite simple to finish. There's always usually a way of finishing a road. But you can complete other people's things. You can seal off someone's castle. If I wanted to, I could finish their castle, so it's not very big. But you might not want to do that, because that's not necessarily going to score yourself points. But it's worth noting you can do things for yourself, but you can also counter other people's things. Just by putting one simple piece down, you had to look through that many tiles to find the appropriate one to put in. And obviously you don't get to look through tiles, you just draw whichever's on the top. Now the only other piece I haven't mentioned yet, if I can find it, which I can't find, is here. Now this piece scores based on how many tiles are surrounding it. Now at the moment this scores 1, and you only score 1 because it scores per surrounding tile. So it can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you filled it up, it would score another 1. It would score, I need to find an appropriate tile for that now. It would score more for having lots of tiles around it, and they don't necessarily have to be joining onto things. So you can just put things on like that, and you just eventually build up points. So this would now be getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then none for these. You also get 1 for the monastery, so this would actually get 6, and it scores. So say the green had claimed the monastery when they put it down. They claim the monastery, they score 1 point, but only when it's completed. If you don't complete the monastery, this guy is stuck here, so you've lost another meeple. Now that's kind of annoying, and when you do complete it, you do score. So it's worth noting, if you do finish, if you manage to complete it, you go ping, take him off, and then 1 point for him on that tile, and 1 for each of these surrounding tiles. So then you can eventually get 9, and you then move up from 4 to 13, which is good. It's quite a few points, and especially if you do the lucky thing of drawing a tile that happens to be the perfect piece for that game, and you can just put it in the middle. Sometimes, say these were here, there were two tiles here that matched. There were 2 tiles, I probably won't be able to match it up. No, I probably can't match up. But say there was a piece there and you found the perfect one of these that fitted in here, although there won't because none of these have castles on actually. You could score a huge amount of points instantaneously. You can just go ping, 9 points, done, which is great. It's really satisfying when you have that situation. And you can also have these neighbouring each other. You can have 2 next to each other, as long as they fit. That's always the main rule, is that you can only put something next to it if it fits. Now the only other scoring method I haven't mentioned is farmers. Now farmers are interesting. Basically, you can claim a field. You can lie them down. You can lie them down and they will sit there until the end of the game. You cannot pick them up. Now, it's very, very complicated scoring farmers. The farming area is a 2-page explanation. Now, I'll just show you that here so you can see that 2 pages. Basically, you don't want to do this if you're playing this the first time. If you all agree not to do it, then it's fine. But basically, you own that field. Now, there are ways of kind of claiming someone else's field, but you can't claim their field if it's already been claimed. So say someone had already put that down. If I put down this tile, I can't, as the blue, say this was just a piece I had, I couldn't claim this bit because it's already part of the field that's been claimed. So a field is basically one continuous stretch of grass. And it doesn't stretch around corners, so this field is separate from this field. But if you put a piece in that did join it, then that would be joined. But you can't claim a field that's already been claimed. But you score for fields. It's quite simple, really. A field, score 3 points per city that's completed in the field or adjacent to the field. If you claimed this field, you would score 1 point for this farm, for this castle. You'd only score 1. Even though it's a huge castle, you score 3 points. So you'd only claim points for that one castle. So it's not as many points as it sounds, but these end up, at the end of the game, being worth like 20 or 30 points. Because as you're playing, I've got like half the deck of tiles on the table, and they aren't even attached together. You end up with some really big fields, and you obviously end up with lots and lots of points for all those things. So at the end of the game, the fields can make you huge amounts of points, but they aren't very fun to play really, because you end up that you run out of pieces, which can mess you up. If you then drew a castle but you couldn't claim it, the other player can then just claim it because you haven't, as long as they can put a tile down next to it. So it's a simple game because of the simplicity of what you can actually do each turn, but the strategy is really, really in depth. So when you draw a piece, where you put it is really, really interesting and complex. So I would recommend this game for beginners, but I would make sure when you play it as a beginner, you don't use the field rule. You just say no fields can be used this game. So you cannot do that, you cannot do that. And that makes the whole game really, really simple. It does mean there's still a bit of competition. You've still got competition for castles and for roads and monasteries, but it's worth doing that because it does make it much more complex if you're playing it with fields, sorry. But I do really, really love this game. It's a very, very famous game in the board game world, and it has a lot of expansions which add in a lot of different rules. I have never actually played any of the others, but it's a really fun game. I love it for its simplicity, not for its complexity. Its competitiveness is really good fun as well. Now, it does say on the back, it's 2 to 5 player game, and it's 13 plus, and it takes 40 minutes. Now, it can take less than 40 minutes, especially if you're playing without fields, because every time you draw a tile, it's very, very quick, and you don't have to think about it. But if you're playing with people that know the game well, and you've got lots of complicated rules, and there's lots of different players, it does mean every tile you draw, you're sitting there thinking, I could put it there, I could put it here, and you spend a lot of time thinking. But it's worth noting it's not that complicated for beginners if you take out that rule. And it does say in the rules that when you first set up the game, you don't necessarily have to use the farmers. It says here, for your first game, it's best to play without the farmers. It just makes it a lot more simple because it is complicated with the farmers. Now, that's Carcassonne. Now, it's a really, really good fun game. I do really, really recommend it, and it's very, very cheap. Now, the design of this one is the old version, which is this kind of box. They have brought out a new modern version, which is slightly more cartoony, rather than this semi-realistic look that this has got. Now, I much prefer this look, and I don't know whether they're going to make these anymore or whether they've just stopped them completely. But it's still out there. You can still buy them in both versions. Now, this version is more expensive. I have looked on Amazon. This version's about £30. If you buy the modern version, it's about 20 something. It's about 23. I did find this version for 23 in a shop. They must have just been selling it at a price that was all right for what they paid for it. But it's a really good fun game. I really recommend it. It's not got that much interest other than just strategy. It's not very fun in the sense of like art, but it is really, really good fun. But give it a try if you get a chance. If you know anyone that's got it, try and have a game of it. It's really, really worth playing. But thank you very much for watching. I mentioned at the beginning I've already made some other board game reviews. I've got Dead of Winter, Tokaido, and the Tokaido expansion, and also Machi Koro. So if you're interested in those, feel free to check them out. But thank you very much for watching, and hopefully see you in another video.